All right, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and welcome you to the first public engagement forum of the comprehensive planning process for the City of Harrisburg, BHBG. I want to thank everybody again for coming out and for offering up your opinions and thoughts and for providing input that we as the city and the consultants are going to take into putting into this 20-year vision for the comprehensive plan. So what is a comprehensive plan? A comprehensive plan is the vision for the city that's developed with intense community input. So it's a very bottoms-up idea of what the city should be and what the city can be. The time horizon, as I said, is 20 years. However, this isn't a plan where everything's in kind of going on for 20 years and then boom, we have a city. This process will create a baseline for where we're at, and the vision will be quantified by having data that where we want to get to. So what the purpose of the plan is to lay out for every 20 years, every 10 years, every 5 years, every year, what are the milestones we're going for to achieve that 20-year vision. So again, the community has to have buy-in of this, and that's why it's so important that everybody's here and that everybody is providing the data and the input to make this plan a success. So starting out, the first thing I want to mention is the comprehensive plan website. I'm not sure if everybody here has gotten a chance to go to the website. It's www.behbg, that's behbg.com. And we've got it up here. So the first step you want to do once you go to the website is go up into the upper right-hand corner and register. The registration will involve you putting your name in, doing things like what neighborhood do you live in or frequent, what is your interest in this planning process. And this data is all designed to kind of give us a little bit of demographic data, not too much, but a little bit of demographic data into where some of these answers are coming from and maybe how we can tailor our process. Put it at the bottom. If you notice down at the bottom when you go to the website, in the center, you'll see this traducir function, and this is able to translate the website into a number of different languages. So if you have a friend who speaks Spanish, if you have a friend who's Vietnamese, Bhutanese, German, anything that they're not necessarily comfortable working with the English language version, the whole website is able to be translated into another version and another language, which is hopefully able to make people feel more comfortable with this process and more comfortable putting their information in. Also on our webpage or on our website, you'll see our ideas tab at the top, and this is really the heart of what this website and really what this process is. Once you're approved by the consultants, and that will happen within a day of you registering, oftentimes much faster, especially if you register during the workday, you'll be able to post ideas and comment on ideas other people have posted, as well as like ideas. So this is a very democratic process in the way this is done. Anybody can post anything. It's very easy. You go up to post your idea and give your idea. Not signed in. All right. Well, we'll get signed in. But you give your idea a name. Say you want a gondola from City Island to the Archives building. You put up a picture. You download a picture of a gondola from Google Images to your desktop, and then you access it through the site. Put gondola to City Island on there, and do a little commentary. And once it's posted, people will have the opportunity to go on and like it, or to comment on it. Say maybe this would work better if it went up Reservoir Park or something. Or maybe somebody says, hey, this isn't a great idea, but maybe if we did a trolley instead. So really, there's no limit on the information or the ideas that you can put up there, or the interaction that the public can have with your ideas. So we encourage you to stay active on this, to really, as you develop ideas, it takes just a minute to really put them on, and then to go and look at other people's ideas, because that's really the power in this website, is the ability to identify what the city and what the residents in here really want. You'll see under the top, we've got it right now, filtered by recently popular. You can do most recent, most commented, but you'll note that the top ones right now are pedestrian bikes equalized on the streets. So that's the idea from the people who have gone on and registered and who have gone to vote or gone to comment. that this is the idea they like. So this kind of moves to the top of what the recommendations that you will see in the comprehensive plan end up being. The way we got to this was the brainchild really of one of the consultants we selected, crowdsourced placemaking. And our selection process was very robust. We initially started with a steering committee of 23 individuals from the community representing either topical aspects of the plan, such as transportation or environment, or representing geographical areas within the city, South Side, Uptown, Allison Hill. So we tried to make sure that the steering committee was very representative of the broad interests and ideas that will encompass the comprehensive plan. Based on that steering committee helped put together an RFP through a lot of back and forth, so it wasn't just one thing selected and we sent it out. We really tried to refine the RFP to reflect what we thought, as the steering committee as a whole, the comprehensive plan should focus on and what the community would want. After the RFP process was done, we all graded the RFP submittals, and across the board, everybody was pretty much in agreement with who our top 2 teams were. We brought those top 2 teams in, we did interviews, and from those interviews and the scoring on the RFPs, we ended up selecting our final consultant team who is going to be running this process. And with that, I'd like to segue into introducing you to the principal of the lead consultant team that will be doing this, Brett Peters with Office of Planning and Architecture.
Thank you very much, Nick. As Jeff said, my name is Brett Peters. I'm principal of Office for Planning and Architecture, and we are based right here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, essentially isolated at a couple of alleys called Willow and Liberty right behind St. Pat's Cathedral. So we're actually very central in the city. We will be having a plan room at our office, which will be open to the public for certain hours every day once it gets built, which will be about 2 weeks. And we actually don't have anything to pin up yet, but when we do, we will invite the public in there. There will be a computer at people's disposal, so they can actually enter information. We'll have folks in the office who can assist them with doing that. We'll also have good old-fashioned paper if they're more comfortable writing things down that we can then enter for them. So we're very excited to move ahead on the project. One of the things I was asked to talk about today was what the comprehensive plan is, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion about the comp plan. And what it is, it does not cover every component of how we operate a city. The comprehensive plan is really focused on the physical components of the city and physical structures. As we can see up here, the state requires cities to have a comprehensive plan that covers the location, character, and timing of future development, dealing with land use and changes in land use, housing needs of present and anticipated residents, movement of people and goods, community facilities and utilities, natural and historic resources, and then we have to take a look at all the ideas that we have and assess whether or not they can integrate with each other properly, and then create an implementation plan and timeline for those works. As a locally based architect with a planning background, when I saw this request for proposals come across my desk, I was very excited because I have been in contact with many folks, both in the U.S. and frankly around the world, who are very skilled with these exercises. And what I tried to do was select a local component and then a component that was at somewhat of a distance from Harrisburg, so we could get both local knowledge and also a more global perspective, and integrate current best practices that are going on in other places, and make sure that using the local knowledge, they actually could be applied to Harrisburg. So dealing with the stormwater, freshwater and wastewater, road and transportation systems, effectively the engineering infrastructure. We have a pair of Kurowski and Wilson, which is a locally based firm, and Mark Kurowski is sitting here in the front row, and he'll be available to answer questions a little bit later if you care to ask him. And they were paired with Arup, which is actually the largest engineering firm in the world. They're based out of London, but we're working with their New York office, which is the head of Arup America. It's the whole Hemisphere. They're a superb firm. I've worked with them many times before, and we're working with a wonderful woman, Susan Ambrosini. There, we actually will go into greater. Actually, you can. I'm ahead of myself on the sequence. We'll get to those guys in a minute. My firm, OPA, is paired with 83 Advisory, and they're the principals of 83, Stacy Span on the right, and Brian McLaughlin in the middle. Stacy and Brian have extremely long histories dealing with affordable housing. Stacy actually had his early training as a banker and decided that he wanted to help people a little bit more directly than that. And he's been involved with some of the major housing authorities in the United States. Brian spent a time being Deputy Secretary of Building and Community Development for Maryland, about 6 years, and worked extensively with Fannie Mae, and is now in the private sector doing this sort of work. So they will be very, very helpful in crafting policy for us for how we deal with our housing, how we deal with our community development and affordability issues. And they are paired with my firm, OPA. We do urban design and architecture based in Harrisburg. Our practice actually extends throughout the U.S. and into Latin America for certain projects. To the next slide. There, I was. The next set of consultants we have, as Jeffrey was explaining, crowdsourced placemaking, CSPM, and Good Land Collaborative. Good Land Collaborative is the effort of Tasha Dalen, who is a resident who lives right down here at the 2300 block of Market Street, and has been actively involved in public participation work in the city and community representation. She is assisted by Tara Leo Aki, who you probably recognize writing for the Berg and for Penn Live. And they're supporting Neil Takamoto, who's on your left, who's a principal with CSPM, which has done some really revolutionary work evolving website and broad scale public engagement using the website. We're really, really excited to have CPSM on the team because when I was younger doing urban planning work and a college student interning doing this work, the hardest thing possible was to get immediate public feedback. People developed things called visual preference surveys and other forms where they could statistically read groups of people, but you had to get a meeting together, and it was very expensive and very difficult to do. This allows people anytime they want to get on the website and comment on the plan. They will be able to see documents that are being developed for the plan in real time. When we develop something, we'll post it. We'll open it to public comment. And as Jeffrey explained, the public will be able to place their own ideas on the website, and then other members of the community can comment on those items. So at the end, what we can do is really ascertain some of the items that the public would really like to see developed in the city, and can focus resources towards those items. And lastly, where I got a bit off track, our engineering pairs, Arapa and Kurowski and Wilson. They will be working with, as we said, the engineering infrastructure for the city, water, transportation. We have a special focus on alternative transportation. What do we do with our transportation center, bus systems, bikeways, things that essentially are not cars. So there's going to be an extra effort on that since Harrisburg is such a good walkable city already. So that's the team, and we are very, very proud to have been selected for this and look forward to moving forward with it. Does anybody have any questions about the team right now I could field? Who is who or what they do? As you can see, it's all physical planning. You can ask us anytime during the rest of the evening. We'll keep moving here. To give you some understanding of the sort of items that we're beginning to look at, at its core, the physical aspects of the city are really guided by nature, believe it or not. We often forget this. But this is probably the best example of things that are important to Harrisburg in terms of developing a physical plan. On the left, you see our wide and polite river and that nice little stream that runs down by Cameron Street, the Paxton Creek. when they're being polite. And the image to the right is the floodplain map showing the areas that are wet when these areas decide to flood. This form and these two bodies of water have formed most of what we know as Harrisburg today. Currently, about 16% of the buildings, the square footage of the city is in the floodplain. That's something significant that we're going to have to deal with. 84% has its foundations dry, which is good. But you can see down the middle of the city, the old industrial corridor, for the logic that it was built around a canal bed, is in the wet zone and is one of the primary areas that we have to deal with in the comprehensive plan. But more than that, having this cleft down the city actually has changed the way the city is developed. And to give you an example of the implications of this, I think are fairly interesting, is we know from dialogue that there's a bit of a competition in the city between the river wards and the Allison Hill area. But the fact that that wet zone goes down between that industrial corridor has significant implications on how the city is connected. And these are things we want to be mindful of as we move forward with planning. And for example, you can see that from the downtown north, the downtown is really part of this riverside piece. There are, across 12 blocks, there are 8 direct connections that move traffic north and south into the downtown. But because of that industrial zone and the wetland around it, there are only 3 connections across 24 blocks from the downtown into the hill. So you can imagine how that fundamentally changes the way a neighborhood is connected. And while that seems to be problematic, it also creates some real opportunities. That if we can begin to understand what the opportunities are, we can begin to craft neighborhood plans and community plans around each place. The image on the left, for example, shows how the river wards are actually fairly strongly disconnected from the interstate system. You have to take about a mile trip from that through generally congested areas to get out to 81 and 83. Whereas the hill area has 3 direct connections to the interstate. So it's actually much better connected to the region than the other section, than the other area. So as we begin to evolve the plan, it doesn't mean one is better than the other or less good, but they have different characters of use that make sense. For example, the area that's connected to the interstate, especially since 83 is about to begin a major improvement project, that can actually export things, as we say economically, to the area better than the river wards. So there's some really interesting ideas that we can begin to deal with that are true functions of the natural form of the city. We think that's interesting. The other image actually shows the ease of walking to the transportation center. Obviously our train service and things like that. And interestingly, if you look at the numbers, that's about equal. The access within a half a mile, which is a typical comfortable walk for most people. There are about 2,500 people living to the north and about 2,300 people living to the east. So the distance to the transportation center is just about in balance. Just opportunities that we can take a look at. In other ways, the neighborhoods are what I would call a set of dualities. And you can see here the age of housing, the red being the oldest, the yellow being the newest. And the patterns of housing on both the eastern part of Harrisburg and the northern part are pretty similar. We've got almost even numbers of houses from each era and each type. So in that way, and obviously we have the 2 large high school buildings that were originally set out in the City Beautiful plan, there was a real understanding that there was a duality. So one of the things that I'm interested in doing as we go through this plan is looking at the dualities where things are balanced and the distinctions where things are different, and trying to craft unique plans for different parts of the city.
So anything can be put up on the board. Don't stop yourselves. If you've done a brainstorming session, it's a shout out thing. I will be able to follow you. Shout out at will. I can write fast. I can hear. If I need slow down, if we get a cacophony of sound, I'll break it up. But you guys just let your brains flow based on the idea, specifically to neighborhoods as well as citywide. Anything and everything. What does Harrisburg need? What should it be? What can we achieve with this plan? Okay, so who wants to start off?
Improved mass transportation.
A clearinghouse for all activities.
When you say all activities, can you give us some examples?
We have a lot of activities that are going on. Nobody really knows, or if they do, we have a lot of events that are on the same day, which could be a good thing and a bad thing. But if you're raising money, you know, if you're, again, like, you know, if you're nonprofits or whatever, it could be a conflict. Some of us are going after the same audience.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Shelley?
More options in education.
Citywide composting site.
Better lighting and street signs.
More neighborhood watch programs.
Traffic cameras.
Safe houses in the inner city.
Can you say a little bit, was that Shelley?
Yes.
You said safe houses in the inner city. What do you mean by inner city?
Our most violent neighborhoods, I think we kind of know those, right? Where we have children who are not supervised and in trouble. I think we deserve our help, not our punishment.
Traffic calming on major arteries.
Can you give some examples of those devices, please? And I'm sorry, where Scott was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it could be barriers and narrow streets, using Market Street as an example, the center line. The center lane allows people to think that they can go high speed because it's so open.
Thank you.
We need better maintenance of streets, trees, lights, sidewalks, and our parks.
Quarterly firearm buyback program.
And arresting those that's bringing the firearms in the city. I don't know how you can word that.
Let me think how to word that.
Firearms, drugs, whatever they bring in the city. immediate
Better
arrest.
firearm enforcement?
We need more police and code people in this city.
Okay. What are we saying about these abandoned structures? We have abandoned
They need to
structures.
be reused, the owners need to
Repurpose,
contribute to their
reuse,
reuse.
repurpose. Okay.
And find the owners that are not keeping them up.
I can't escape a ticket. How do these people do that?
Repurpose, reuse, remediate,
Recycle.
abandon,
Commercial property.
commercial. Thank you, Rafika.
It's really not just commercial, but those are large things that the gateways to the
Okay.
city. So,
Also the residential property.
right.
I'm gonna put commercial and res. Okay, is that good? All right.
We need to improve our sewer system in this city.
I'm gonna.
Employment, there's only one demolition specialist demolishing residential unsafe structures at this time.
So more variety of employment, more competition of employment.
The education process, being able to do more education leads to more jobs.
Education and training.
Training, that's an excellent word. Thank you.
We need to come up with ways to encourage businesses to want to be inside the city of Harrisburg that have something to offer other than liquor.
Thank you.
Can I put not bars? Is that, are
Just
we?
say not alcohol, we have enough. We need bakeries, we need factories to make clothes, I mean, attracting those kind of businesses here that will create jobs.
Not predictions.
Exactly.
Arts and crafts stores, little boutiques, we need.
Cottage
We
industry.
have really talented people here who can run their own businesses if they had a beginning. Small business support, local.
Reasonable.
These are great. I love the specifics. This is what we're really, especially when you get to the SWOT analysis that you're going to do in groups, these specifics, keep these specific words. Yes, Mr. Wood.
Well, good afternoon and good evening. I'm so happy that people are discussing things that this administration and city council have been discussing since you've been there. Doesn't it sound very, very, very similar? We have discussed many things and issues here. If they would go to the city and go to some of the meetings that are being held in the city, you wouldn't even be saying this because it's obvious. Let me say this, and I'm going to be brief. I've made a conversation with you and also this administration. If you truly want to help and make a change in the city of Harrisburg, first place you need to go to is the street. Secondly, you need to go to Dauphin County Prison. That's number 2. Thirdly, you need to go up into an area where there is nothing but crime. Ask the criminal, what does he truly need? What can you do for him? It is okay to do all of this. This is something that comes out of a textbook. It sounds great, but guess what, Honorable Mayor? It doesn't work. All I'm saying to you is in this administration, once again, I was a criminal. That's why I do this. Because if there is a good thing about what we're doing here in this city, we have now somebody that really wants to change, but they have to listen. They have to get into the community. The honorable person there, we still have to be community-based. Stop doing this, talking at them, talk to them. This problem can be alleviated and eliminated very quickly, but you have to listen. This is nothing but textbook. This is a lot of theory. I'm trying to give this city, and like I said, they know me well. But all I'm saying to you once again, you have someone and there are similar people in this city crying out to really help the city. Crime, people getting stabbed on a daily basis, shot at. All I'm saying to you, instead of having her here with a pen, have some of us go into the streets and show you where it's really at. And then let them tell you their stories. And when we spend millions of dollars in block grant money, put it into the community where it should be. The administrative cost is going through the ceiling here. Everyone's biting at the dollar bill. All I say once again is we have to, if you really want it to work, it's doable. But you can't read in a textbook when it will never work. You have to have community-based. You have to have people in the community, not the ones that work from 8 to 4 and they're gone. But there are many people in the community that love their city that made lots of mistakes. Felons, a lot of them. But we will not, in this administration, really extend a hand to them. That's all I have to say. But then again, I commend you, but then again, I know the better way. Okay?
Well, if I may pause and respond, or Mayor, do you want to?
Why don't you add second chance opportunities for ex-offenders?
I have a box, Mayor.
We have, but you can add that as well. We have in the city.
Well, I think if you're
Maybe
going to go with
I
the
also-
ex-offenders, you also need to address finding jobs for youth.
And training.
Educating them in citizenship soft skills and the things the schools aren't teaching them.
Civic education.
Yes, what happened to civic education?
The city of Harrisburg was just the way she said. Uptown function, South Side function. I know the names that I know. The Hill function, and then you had downtown. We came uptown because we had family uptown, but uptown had grocery stores. Everything that uptown needed was for those communities uptown. And I hear that's kind of what we want to go back to. We walked our own local schools. I was part of busing. I remember when it shut down. I remember the changes when I was in 7th and 8th grade. Seems like we want to go back to that time. Everybody had gardens. If my parents didn't grow something, the neighbor grew what we had, so we was able to feed each other. So I guess adding that and maybe looking how that was back then and trying to pick and replicate and tweak. Because some of this we're just regurgitating back.
Yeah, I think there's some soft things that the things you're working on help create, and that is a sense of wholesomeness and a sense of hopefulness.
Yes.
Because one of the things that has happened in Harrisburg over the years is there's a very depressed feeling, a feeling of hopelessness. And all of these things contribute to a hopeful feeling, and a hopeful feeling brings people back into the city and creates vibrancy and stuff like that. So, you know, making it attractive, making sure our streets are clean, and rehabbing housing, and everybody having that sense of place, as well as green space, does that for us.
Our local people don't right now have the support or the income or any of the system that would require, will help them actually have that. The system right now kicks us back down when we make a head start. So let's talk about right now. Like, we have tons of landlords that are absent and we have no way to reach them and nobody holds them accountable. And so we have some short-term issues I'd like us to talk about realistically in the face, as Mr. Boyd said, of all this wonderful stuff we hope for one day. Because we've got kids now who are being just thrown out with their families in a minute and no recourse for these people. We have kids' lives who are chaos and danger and sickness now. So while we're building this perfect utopia, let's look at the kids that are dying in our community now, please.
I do want to emphasize one thing that to address Mr. Boyd, I wish he would have stayed a couple more minutes to listen, but so you all know this process, and I've talked to some of you one-on-one, this process is multi-pronged in terms of our community engagement. This is this type of forum that we're having. We're having in this first phase 6 of these sessions, but for weeks and weeks and weeks, we've been going out into the community and going in places that perhaps no one's gone before and asked people who've never been asked before, what do you want? What do you think this place needs? There's also a website component that you've been introduced to. I just emphasize this in the middle of our brainstorm session just to help build a little bit more trust and understanding. As a city resident myself, some of you know me, I mean, there's a crew of us who understand exactly what Mr. Boyd is saying and want to take a process that seemingly is from the top up and make it bottom up so it can be real for what we're being asked to do, which is a very public process objective, right? Create a comprehensive plan. It sounds lofty, but there's more to it, and this is our opportunity to hear multiple people's voices. So I hope you don't mind, I just pause for a second to emphasize this. This is just one thing that we're doing. We're working the streets too, okay? So, although, back to my point, there aren't any Harrisburg youth here, I talked to a lot of Harrisburg youth and I've gotten some really neat ideas from them. One thing they say is that there's nothing to do. Not just nothing to do, nothing safe to do. No safe place to go. So I would love to hear from your perspective, especially those of you who are born and raised and grew up in this city, what was here once that we think would benefit the youth again?
Roller skating rink.
Okay. That is one thing, Mr. Vega.
We had more than one. Dairy Street was one that was the smallest one. And then we had one on Crooked Hill Road. And then we had the Star that's in Middletown, and the school buses. We would meet at certain areas at different schools for the children to catch the bus. It kept a lot of, we're talking hundreds of kids off the street.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know it was either every Thursday night or Friday, say like hit towards the weekends. So that we could do. Now there's perfect buildings. When we talk about the vacant landlords, when you look at the Uptown Shopping Center on 7th Street, that could be an excellent place to have a skating rink, train, build, educate, employ, etc.
Excellent, thank you for giving real specific places, that's very helpful too. We have a place, is there a building in mind? Bishop McDevitt, what should that be, what could that be?
Housing. We just talked about housing need for homeless, disability, etc.
People used to come to the Reservoir Park and they would have dance recitals there, they would have programs and things there. Right now, there's very limited seating in the park, and I'm not one who's inclined to take a blanket and sit on the ground.
Fair enough. Ms. Edelman, how do you think we can put this, what's Reservoir Park?
They need to reconsider putting those benches back.
Okay.
They need to,
Open up Devil's Ditch so we could slide and do like we did before back in the day. That took a lot of children off the streets too.